Well, hello there. You're watching OffBeat Business TV or listening to the OBBM Network podcast. I'm your host, Susan Hamilton, and I'm sitting here today with the almost new. We are so supporting Tim O'Hare for Tarrant County Judge. So this is an election coming up that we're real excited about, and you're about to hear from him and understand why this is so important. We'll be right back.
Welcome to OffBeat Business TV and the OBBM Network podcast. CEO and host Susan Hamilton shares vital insight from local DFW leaders on successful life and business, focused squarely on local family business. It's time for our nation to rise, and we'll do it through a vibrant local business sector that stands up for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Ready to meet your advocates? Here's your host.
You're watching OffBeat Business TV. Welcome. My name is Susan Hamilton, and I am here with candidate Tim O'Hare, who is looking at the Tarrant County Judge seat. That's interesting to us because we are all just learning, Tim, as we were talking earlier, what on earth that seat means. This is an interesting time, and our local communities are starting to pay attention. And you're over there in Tarrant County, and a lot of people have said, how Tarrant County goes, so goes the state. And how the state goes, so goes the nation. And so we've really got to think in terms of liberty and Constitution. And you seem to be the guy that has been known from Farmers Branch to South Lake for really rallying the call of people standing up for themselves.
You know what? We got to have people that'll stand up for America. We got to have people that'll stand up and fight for what's right. So for far too long, normal, average, everyday people have not gotten involved and not paid attention. And so it's allowed our Constitution to be trampled on. It's allowed government to run roughshod over businesses, over individuals. We need people that understand the hallmark of America is freedom. We need people who will step up and say, I'm going to fight for this. I'm going to fight for what we are. And I've been able to do that in multiple arenas as a mayor, as a Republican Party chairman, as a founder of a PAC that fought critical race theory in South Lake schools. And I am ready to do it as your next Tarrant County judge. That
is so wild. We are just learning we had no idea that a county judge was a position. And what on earth they did. Does that mean they're a judge?
Yeah, everybody still thinks, I say everybody, we got some people that think county judge is somebody that sits there in a black robe and presides over courts.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so county judge, here's what it is. There are 254 counties in the state of Texas. All counties are run, the county government is run by a 5-member commissioner's court. And the county judge presides over the commissioner's court, and then the commissioners, 4 different ones in 4 different precincts in the county. So thing you can do quick math when you're elected to these kind of things is it takes 3 votes to do anything in the county government, and the county government itself is an enormous undertaking. So you have federal government, state government. A division of state government is the county government. So the commissioner's court, a good way to think of it, it's more like a city council for a county, and the county judge is more like mayor of the county. There are some counties in Texas where the county judge actually does some limited judicial functions. Tarrant County is not one of them. Population is far too large with that 2.1 million people. So the Commissioner's Court does a lot of things, but one of those that's huge is they preside over and vote on the budget for all county government departments. That's constables, justices of the peace, the sheriff's department, the district attorney's office, civil courts, criminal courts, the tax assessor's office, and then they set the tax rate for the hospital district. So it is a big undertaking. We're talking about a $2 billion total budget that the Commissioner's Court is responsible for.
Wow, wow. So in this position, the county judge can make decrees and tell everyone this is how our county is going to behave now. Is that right?
That's a good way to put it. So what a lot of us learned in the pandemic A lot of people had no earthly idea what a county judge was, didn't know how it could influence their lives. And then we learned from the pandemic, a county judge has the ability to say, your business is not essential, so you don't get to run it. You have to wear a mask if you go into a store or go into public. We learned a lot during this pandemic, and it was a challenging time, but the county judge is the chief emergency management officer of the entire county, and it's an enormously important role, which prior to the pandemic, for so long, had fallen under the radar, and very little was paid attention to it by voters, by the media, by anyone really. But I think people know now, based on things that have come down out of the county judge's office, certainly not just in Tarrant County, but especially in Dallas County,
Truth.
how pivotal a role it is.
Yeah, that's interesting. So as an emergency management, on that side of it, do you work with federal government then? Do you work with funding from other sources? How does that work?
You will work with federal governments, you'll work with state government, you'll work with local governments. You have people that inside the county government that work for the government, public health officials, you have county administrators. Certainly there's lots of law enforcement involvement. The sheriff's department is the law enforcement division in addition to constables inside the county government. But you work with the sheriff, and then you work with local police. The sheriff works with local police. There's a lot of intergovernmental agency cooperation when you assume that role. As mayor, I had the same role. Fortunately, we did a lot of training on it. We did a lot of planning, but never really had to enact anything, because when I was mayor, we didn't have any situations, certainly like the pandemic, come up, or any great weather disasters or anything like that.
Yeah, so it's just a very interesting time for us, because in the local business community, we want to know who's going to support our right to be in business, who's going to really make sure that we're not making these ideas based on a handful of assumptions that are being made by people we don't necessarily trust. I think we have a right to decide who we trust, especially when it comes to our health. And I don't believe that there is any other entity out there, certainly not government, that cares more about our children, our grandparents, our client base, our customers, our ability to racially get along, right, than a local family business. We care about those things. We want to do business in healthy, safe environments and never be responsible for anyone else's injury or harm. But these ideas that really were, now we can look back and see a lot of them were very ill-founded. They didn't have the science to back it up, and they're still being shoved down our throat. And what we've got in America is a climate where the business communities are going, wait a minute, prove it. Prove it, right? If we are going to stand this, prove it. And we want to know that the people that we put in these powerful positions are going to actually demand evidence, and evidence that we can all trust too.
You bet. So as a small business owner, I've run my own successful small business for 21 years. I have signed paychecks for twice a month for 21 years without ever missing one. And I understand what it means to employ people. I understand what it means to create jobs. Governments don't create jobs.
Truth.
The best thing governments can do is get out of the way and let private business owners create jobs, and have a regulatory framework that's fair, but it's easy to follow, easy to understand, and no surprises. I've made it very clear throughout my campaign, you will never see me issue a mask mandate. You will never see me shut down a business declaring one essential over another, and heaven forbid, you will never see me say a church can't operate. The idea that we would touch that is, it's disturbing.
Oh my gosh,
And the Constitution in many ways, and you can look all over with mandates and things, you can look, the Constitution has kind of been trampled on for the last year and a half. And we especially saw it during voting. I mean, just changing rules on the fly without legislative oversight, without just, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Yes, it was a challenging time, but you got to stay level-headed, you got to stay calm, you got to stay cool, and we are a free people, or at least we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And people are free to make decisions. Do I want to run my business? People are free if they work at that particular business, if they want to come in or they want to stay home, that's up to them. Government shouldn't be telling everyone, you can work, you can't work, you can't go to work, you can go to work. That's not the role of government. The role of government is to protect our God-given rights, and throughout this pandemic over the last year and a half, we've seen them trampled on one level after another.
I think that's an important distinction, as you say. anyone in these big challenging issues that come up have a right to create for themselves an environment that works for their company and their family and their system, and no matter what that is, let them do it. And you're right, the government getting in the way with a blanket answer for everyone, geez, I learned that a long time ago. Whenever that's the only solution, I automatically don't trust it, and I bet you don't either. You're watching Offbeat Business TV and listening to the Offbeat Business Show. I'm sitting here with Tim O'Hare, who is running for Tarrant County Judge. So we'll be right back after this.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? Or spending late nights and covering deep government corruption? Does it mean persevering over 20 years, even after 4 masked men set one of our printing presses on fire last year? Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, it's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
Technology, when it works, is supposed to make our lives easier, creating routines that allow us to protect customer data, track our progress, forecast the future, communicate better, and move much faster. So, you need technology solutions that work when you're not working, or simply not paying attention. Smart technology solutions, making the complicated uncomplicated.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
You're watching Offbeat Business TV. My name is Susan Hamilton, and I'm here with Tim O'Hare, who's running for Tarrant County Judge. And the more I hear about him, the more I like. So I got to looking up his information so I'd be better prepared for this conversation. And what impresses me so much are the fact that you have been in these businesses and you've held these offices and these positions, and you're willing to do that while you're busy as a family man. I have a lot of respect for that. I'm a family woman running a business, and I've got 3 generations in my home, and I'm also a mental health care provider. So there's a lot of different things in my life that keep me busy. I can't imagine doing what you're doing. And I know that girls will keep you busy. Oh my goodness, and you got 4 of them from what I see, right? It's 4, not 5, right?
4 girls, that's right.
Oh my goodness, and your wife, women that are raising girls,
yeah,
have
so
a few demands on them too.
We have 5 at home. We have 2 male dogs and 2 male donkeys to try to even it out. So,
well, let's see if it does. But it's so important for us to, as we spoke earlier in the first section, really have people that are holding these offices that are protecting our right to be in business so that we can do all the stuff that we do. So we need to be able to support our candidates and to know who we support. And you know what, guys? I'd like all of you to know how hard it is to figure those things out. Most people have really poor information on their website, very limited information, and everybody sounds the same. So it's hard for us if we don't know you. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on my show, because I already heard about you. Your reputation precedes you, sir. And so I thought, well, let's talk about this and get you in front of people, because a lot of times when we hear about people, it's those sound bites from the media we used to trust, and we don't really get get that? How do we get behind you, right? And how do we get behind the people that are going to protect us in business? Because I know that that is the smartest thing for us to do right now, is to make sure we rally. Because in the local business sector, we are not just rallying for us, it's our staff, everybody that comes in, that works in our business, and everybody that comes in and out of our business. We've got a really strong, influential position as a local business owner if we're willing to step up into that space, and it could very well mean the future of your business.
Yeah, I think it's really important to elect people to office who doing this for decades is not what they set out to do, nor what they'll continue to do. So as a guy that started his own company almost 21 years ago and has had to make payroll and had to make decisions and had to do hiring decisions and unfortunately had to do some firing decisions, you understand the economy in that scenario. You understand the taxes you pay. You pay a tax on your cell phone. You pay a tax on unemployment tax. It's a state unemployment tax, a federal unemployment tax. You pay your own tax. You pay matching taxes. We are taxed out the wazoo.
I was going to say, it's outrageous. We're not okay with that, by the way.
So I'll give you Tarrant County. So most people don't understand their tax bill.
True.
When you get a property tax bill, they just see, oh my gosh, look how high it is, and then they're mad at everybody. But when you look at a tax bill, there's a school tax. That's normally the largest piece of it. There's a city tax. There's likely going to be a community college district tax. There's likely going to be a hospital district tax, although some counties don't. There's going to be a county property tax. So the Tarrant County property tax rate is the combination of the county property tax rate and the hospital district property tax rate. That combined rate in Tarrant County right now is about 45 cents per $100 of value. Tarrant County is the largest by population Republican-run county government in the state of Texas, and the second largest Republican-led county government by population in the state of Texas, Collin County. Their tax rate is only 17 cents. So I understand, as a guy that pays these taxes on a monthly, sometimes twice monthly basis, I understand how taxes affect businesses. You cut taxes, people can hire more jobs and create more jobs. They hire more people. Those people spend more money in the economy. It benefits all the businesses. It's cyclical, and we saw it with the Trump tax cuts, as they like to be called. We saw more money pour into the economy, more people working, the unemployment numbers for every racial segment you can come up with, most of them all-time lows. And that's what happens when businesses and business owners don't have to pay so much out for taxes. One of the things I want to do is bring that business sense and that understanding of what taxes does to an economy and a business, which carries on to the people that work for the companies. I want to bring it, I want to come in and lower it and give people real tax relief. Here's what you see so often amongst local elected officials. So they'll come in and they'll cut your tax rate by 1/4 cent or 1/2 cent. And then they'll run it around telling everybody to cut your taxes, when in reality, your appraisal is going to go up every year. We're seeing appraisals go up. The appraisal district has a job to do, and that's appraise properties. So when the property goes up and you cut a tax rate by 1/2 penny, well, your taxes are going to go up. But most of those elected officials that do that will run around telling you, we cut your taxes, when in reality they didn't. And we need people that are going to get in there and speak truthfully about it and be honest with people and look for ways to come up with real tax relief. When I was a mayor, our taxes were getting too high, and we could see that we just have way too many people working for the government. I mean, we had departments that, I mean, literally, they didn't have a real use, and it had 10, 11 people in it. Decades before, those were needed at that city.
But they didn't get sunsetted.
But they weren't needed, at least not in that number, 25 years later when they haven't built a new road in a decade, but yet they stayed there. So we went about in a humane, decent way of shrinking the size of the staff. We were able to shrink the staff from 505 full-time employees to 350 in a fairly short time frame, saving taxpayers millions of dollars. And when it was all said and done, we only had to lay off about 27 people, but we put things in place, 24/7 access to computers, free job coaching, free mentoring, free interview coaching, and within 30 days of those 27 that ended up getting laid off, only 8 didn't have a job, and we figured, because they never showed up and tried, we figured they didn't want our help getting a job. But literally 155 full-time jobs removed from the tax rolls that weren't necessary, and residents didn't miss a service when that happened. That saved tens of millions of dollars in both salaries, benefits, and unfunded pension liabilities.
So important. We don't understand taxes. It's hard to find out where that actual dollar goes. I don't think that's and I've done some research on that, and because it's so extensive, I haven't gone back in there again, and I consider that irresponsible. I will go back in there, and I will be digging again.
It's complicated.
And I'll try to stay current with that, because we don't know where those dollars and cents goes. I mean, those, you might think it's a penny, half a penny, but they go somewhere, and they accrue, and they matter. So I appreciate you going through there with a fine-tooth comb and taking a lot of that out, because there's probably a lot of redundancies, and that's what we don't want to see. We don't need to be paying 2 or 3 times, because that's the other piece of what you just mentioned. Not only was all that going on, but chances are there were other places in the budget and the way money was allocated that it was actually getting paid for 2 or 3 times over, and that's that to me is a very frustrating thing. We teach that here when we're talking about businesses. You can find money in your own company. You can dig through with a fine-tooth comb. So that's really business sense that you're bringing to the table when you're talking about that, because chances are you've got those funds actually that are necessary for something else, because that's the other piece. Maybe there's something coming up that you could be prepared for, because wow, you can find that money again if that's necessary. Tim, I'm really enjoying your conversation and all the education you're bringing to us. I appreciate that so much. We're going to take a break and hear from a few of our sponsors. We're grassroots funded around here, so I'm real excited to share our sponsors with you. We'll be right back.
Business runs on technology, and human beings are creatures of habit. Unfortunately, not all our habits are good. Technology, when it works, is supposed to make our lives easier, creating routines that allow us to protect customer data, track our progress, forecast the future, communicate better, and move much faster. So, you need technology solutions that work when you're not working, or simply not paying attention. Smart technology solutions, making the complicated uncomplicated.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
And we're back. You're watching OffBeat Business TV or listening to the OffBeat Business Show podcast. I'm Susan Hamilton here with Tim O'Hare today, talking about this role as a county judge. And specifically, you're going after the Tarrant County judge seat, and I think you're going to just do a fabulous job there. But it's important to, dig out some of the controversial stuff every once in a while. Sure. And when when I talked to you the first time, I was like, that dude's familiar. There's something about him, because I'd already heard your name several times in the community. Oh, you got to talk to Tim O'Hare. You've got to talk with him, because I'm making a very firm stand with my business in the community for business, and to make sure that we don't put people in positions of authority that can shut our business down. That's plumb stupid, right?
You got it.
So I want to make sure I know, and so you got to talk to Tim. You got to talk to Tim. Since we're located here in Farmers Branch, I get to realizing, oh, you're the guy. You were the mayor in this town when the illegal immigration conversation really came to Dallas County. And it was the first time we were really talking, and the whole community was talking about this, because the sound bites, now that we understand that it's been a very biased media for a very long time. We didn't know that. We didn't know that at the time. But I'm digging up these sound bites, and I'm going, wow. Because when I first moved into the community, I heard from other people that lived here and that did business here, that you had their support. And it's just interesting. So when we talk about illegal immigration, how did that affect Farmers Branch? And how were you able to be so rock solid for so long?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was on the city council in Farmers Branch. I wasn't mayor yet when we first started talking about it. And if people can remember back to that time, we first started talking about in 2006. So the reason it wasn't talked about in Austin was because Republicans were afraid to touch it. And they were afraid to touch it because if you touch it, you're going to be called a racist. Now, Democrats or media, they have so overplayed that hand now.
True.
If you're a Republican, you're a racist. I mean, that doesn't matter what you do. If you stand up for anything, you're a racist. So it's lost its effectiveness. But remember back in 2006, if they called you that, I mean, it was just panic city. So, Republicans would go on an apology tour about, oh, I'm so sorry I did this. I'll sit down now and be a good boy. What we did, which was different than everybody else, we stood up and talked about it. And then when the media hit us and every newspaper in the country was writing about us, we didn't do what they normally do, which is they normally, oh, I'm so sorry, we misspoke and now move on to something else. We kept fighting it. We didn't go away. And we said it's a real issue. It is, we're not going to be swayed by you calling us names or trying to make this into something it isn't. We swear when we get elected, whether it's city council, county judge, state representative, United States senator, we swear to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States. If I take an oath like that, I take it seriously. And so many other elected officials don't. Well, one of the laws of the United States is you can't come into the country illegally. And there are legal ways to come in. There's legal ways to become a citizen. There's legal ways to come in and work where you don't become a citizen, but you have the right to come work here. But we have to stand up when laws are being broken in our country. We can't let people pick and choose what laws they're going to follow and what laws they decide, yeah, that one's not going to apply to me. If we can do that, if everybody gets one law they don't have to pay attention to, I don't want to pay attention to income tax law. So I'm not going to pay taxes. Well, we can't have a society function where everybody decides.
Why can't we do that?
No,
I want to do that one.
Yeah, I'm with you. So we've got to follow laws, and laws matter. So it was affecting our schools. It was affecting our neighborhoods. At the time, Farmers Branch only had about 28,000 people there. It was estimated by someone who actually fought us on this that we had during that time about 12,000 people in Farmers Branch that were illegally in the country. And it affected our hospitals, and somebody had to stand up and say enough's enough. I'll tell you, when we did it, people would say we took a lot of heat from the media. I would just say, I mean, we did what we were supposed to do, and they do what they typically do, which is attack anybody on our side. But what you saw moving forward after that, at that time, 2006, there was not a single Republican elected official in the state of Texas talking about illegal immigration. After we were the first to do it, all of them started talking about it. All of them said, hey, we got to get serious about securing the border. They started talking about in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. It became a real issue, and I was glad we paved the way and stood up for our country and stood up for our town. When we did it, we had a town, it was basically broke down into 50% Caucasian, 50% Hispanic. So all the people said, oh gosh, they're going to run him out of town. Well, I ran for mayor. When they said, well, there's no way he can win, and I won with, I think, 65% of the vote and had tremendous support amongst Hispanic people. The Hispanic people are pro-family, pro-business, and they think we ought to enforce the border also. And that was I guess, the secret that the media didn't know. They thought they were hurting me. They were actually helping me.
Well, and that's interesting because there should be a clear distinction because we've got people here legally that want to do a great job, and we want that community integration. We want it to be awesome for them. Mm-hmm. Our kids are going to school together.
That's right.
We want those things to work. And really all we want, even for illegal immigration, is that they would become legal. Go do what you need to do to be legal, be a citizen of the United States, and be a part of that, so it's not a drain on our tax dollars, because as you mentioned, they're insane. They are taxing. The taxes are crazy, and there's a million ways we get taxed, and there's a million ways those dollars just go right out the door to things that really have nothing to do with our families. And I want those things funded in my community, in my neighborhood, and so on.
Well, the unfairness of illegal immigration, I mean, there's so many different things, but the unfairness of it is you cannot hire someone who's not legally in the country, yet so many companies do it. So the companies that say, I'm going to follow the law and do the right thing are at a disadvantage because the ones that don't follow the law and don't care they're breaking it can hire somebody at a lower wage, charge a lower price. So it's unfair to the small businesses. But when you get right down to it, the illegal immigration hurts lower income people more than anyone else because it takes jobs away and it pushes wages down. It's wrong all the way around. And as we've seen now, I mean, that was 15 years ago we started talking about that. Congress hasn't done hardly a thing to address the problem in 15 years, and there's no end in sight.
No, there's not. And the concern that we have is also when we're looking at a redistricting and how we're dealing with our population and making sure all of our districts are adequately represented. Of course we want that. But I don't see how it makes sense for any American to say, if you are not an American, you have the right to vote.
Absolutely
because you
not.
wouldn't. How does that? I don't get how that gels. I don't get the common sense in that, because why would someone from another country living here? Why would they support American initiatives? They're not invested in it.
Yeah, if you were to go to Canada or Mexico and try to vote in their elections, they'd throw you in jail and throw away the key. I mean, why we're doing that? It's all about power, and it's all about catering to something and creating a false narrative that I think most Americans are waking up to. You're not really for them. You're just trying to get their votes.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. So we can do a better job. We can do a better job of representing them and putting those pieces together in our community when we know who's doing what. That education is huge. You know what I'd like to see? I'd love to see in our community college district, let's be teaching taxes 101. Can we do that? Can we teach taxes? We don't even understand it.
If more people understood it, they would go fight the people in office, and they'd get lowered, or we'd find new people.
We need to teach on taxes. We need to and have some regular, seriously, what are those in your community, and just have a very well-versed. Yes, there's civics. We don't know that either. I remember my civics class was the freshman football coach, and we learned how to write checks. That's what we learned in civics class. So, I mean, it just, or those things in the, economics, civics, we just didn't put emphasis on this is how a government's run, this is how a city's run, this is how a school board's run. And there's a lot of things involved with the parliamentary procedure that can be exhausting and grueling, and a lot of people don't want to do that. But there's probably some reason those things exist.
Well, Susan, we used to teach in our schools. We used to teach kids to have pride in America. We used to talk about American greatness and American virtues and values. Now we got a huge segment of society and a huge segment of education that wants to teach kids how bad America is and how awful America is. And they want to take us in a direction of socialism, which leads to communism. And that has never worked in any government, in any regime, anywhere in the world. It has always held people down and been disastrous. And we have people in our country today that want us to go in that direction because they think, well, it'll be different here. Well, it won't be any different here. And we got to stand up and fight for our ideals. America has done more good for the world than any country in the history of the world, created more jobs, created more millionaires, multimillionaires, or even not millionaires, just created wealth for people that previously didn't have it or have a way, where in so many other places they're stuck where they're born and they can never rise up, and here you can.
Yeah, it's huge. We don't need to have a caste society here in the United States of America. We don't need to be separating based on our skin color. I mean, we thought we came out of that. So I do believe that it's time to start paying attention to what's going on in our school boards, our city councils, and our commissioners' court, and understanding that. So how often, can I just ask you just a really basic question, but how often do commissioners' courts even meet?
Too often. So I would say, so it's once a week.
Yeah.
On most weeks of the year. They take a week here off, a week there off. So you know what? The Texas legislature meets once every 2 years. Congress is in session virtually all the time. How many voters on whatever your political party is would like to see Congress not in session at all times, 24/7, 365? Most, if not all, Americans. So I think the less often government meets, the better. So we'll look at is there a way to do that where we don't meet as often and do things as often. when I get in there.
Yeah, well, it's still important for us to be participating, and we want to. We don't want to think you're making a bunch of decisions behind our back.
That's
we
right.
want to be there. We want some transparency. We want some accountability, and part of that accountability is us being there. Is us being there. Is us participating.
Paying attention.
You know what? Even if we get you in, and we get the right people in office, when the righteous are in power, the people rejoice.
Amen.
And when we get that done, and we just sit back down and go back to our living room and ignore it, that the same thing could happen. The same thing can happen. Anybody in positions of power that aren't held accountable, aren't watching, can easily make slips here and there. Ethics can slip, morals can slip, character can slip at any, or think about it in a business sense even. You get these, you can take ethics classes. HR departments teach these things. So scenarios, hey, what would you do if? This might be easy, what would you do? These are things that we know in the business world are important. We teach them everywhere else. We've got to be paying attention in the government space. And there's going to be times when you're going to need our support.
You bet.
You're going to be in that position and need to know that the community rallies behind you. And man, if they don't think that you're standing up for them, it's going to be hard to get that done.
You know what we've seen throughout this campaign, so I guess I've been on the campaign trail since May, so what are we now? That's now 5 months. And I have seen more people stepping up to volunteer, to help, to show up, to host a meet and greet, to go work at their local party. I've seen more than I've ever seen. You know, we got a lot of people that it's all doom and gloom and America's over as we know it. Well, you're not old enough to remember this, but in the 70s, when Jimmy Carter was in office, patriotism was at an all-time low, gas was at an all-time high, the shortages, the lines for gas, you can only show up on a certain day depending on what's on your license plate.
I remember that.
And it literally only took about a year and a half, 2 years from there to turn it around and for America to go prosperous again, patriotic again, everybody loves the country. We can absolutely turn around, but it is going to take a different way of doing things and a different type of person to get in the office. I've never been someone, so I've been on the city council mayor, I did that 6 years, then I took 5 years off. Then I was the Republican Party chairman. I did that 2 years, then I took, 3-4 years off. It's never been about get in there, get a gig, and then hold on to it forever. It should be service above self. There's a time to put in, and then there's a time to step aside and let somebody else do it. When I was mayor of Farmers Branch, the last thing I did before I left office was I put on the ballot term limits. And it passed with 82% of the vote. To keep, we had people that were sitting there 20 years, 25 years on that council. That's too long. They run out of ideas. They just get institutionalized. You need new ideas, new people coming in with new ways of doing things, saying, hey, it's time to make some changes, and I'm somebody that will go in and do that, and do it in a way that's smart and uses business acumen and sense to do good stuff in our government for our county.
Yeah, I think that's true because, and the other side of taking those 20-year political careers is the constituents get apathetic. We feel like we got our guy. We got our person in there. That person's going to watch our back.
It's hard to beat an incumbent. The money that flows to the incumbents, I mean, is insane.
Yeah, so we've got to do something about that. So I really appreciate all you're doing. I appreciate the character you're bringing to the community. I appreciate the education you're willing to bring. And I hope you never stop that. I hope, and I don't think you will, with these beautiful little girls. There's something about having those kids in the house that how you are going to be an educator. We can guarantee on that for at least the next 18 years. That's part of what you're just going to be doing because it's part of who you are.
For a long time, yeah.
Yeah. So we need that. We need the community to be really rallied up to understand what it is we are at risk of losing and what we have to do. We've got a constitutional republic if we can keep it the way I understand it.
You got it.
Until next time, you've been watching Offbeat Business TV. Tim, is it electtimohair.com?
You got it. electtimohair.com. Check it out.
electtimohair.com. You're going to find all that information accompanying this video and the podcast. So I don't care if you're driving down the road. You're going to be easily able to click a link at a stop sign. Don't do that while you're driving. But you're going to be able to hear this information and you won't lose it because when you stop, you're going to be able to see all the write-up, get the links that you need to get connected to what Tim's doing and support him and rally behind the people in your community that are doing the same for you. You've been watching Offbeat Business TV and listening to the Offbeat Business Show. Until next time, this is Susan Hamilton.